On April 6, 2007, Crystal Hart, a 22-year-old pregnant woman, was brutally murdered in her flat in Battersea, South London, by Thomas Hughes, a 40-year-old man. Hughes shot Crystal twice in the head in what was later described as a ruthless execution. But the events leading up to her death began much earlier, with a long-running dispute between Crystal and her downstairs neighbour, Angie Brewer. Crystal had moved into her housing association flat in Belleville Road about a year before the killing. Shortly after moving in, she found herself in an ongoing conflict with Brewer, 53, who was described as the neighbour from hell. The disputes between the two women became so severe that they both installed CCTV cameras to gather evidence against one another. The tension between them escalated, with constant rows, complaints, and claims of harassment. Thomas Hughes, a loner who lived with his elderly mother in a nearby house, became involved in the conflict. He was infatuated with Brewer and would do anything to try to win her approval, including resorting to violence. On the evening of the murder, Hughes was already angered by a row that had taken place earlier between Crystal's fiancé, David Civita, and Brewer. During the confrontation, David had written down Hughes's car registration number, which he had taken note of when Hughes appeared at the scene. Later that evening, Brewer, in a state of distress, called the police to report the argument. She also reached out to Hughes, who, within hours, returned to Crystal's flat, armed with a gun. Hughes was reportedly looking for David, but when he was told that David wasn't home, he became enraged. He began banging on the door, demanding that Crystal open it, shouting, "Come out, bitch!" At this point, Brewer was present in the background, pleading no, as Hughes fired the shots. The first bullet struck Crystal in the head, killing her instantly. As Crystal collapsed to the floor in the doorway, Hughes fired a second shot into her temple. He then fled the scene, leaving Crystal's lifeless body behind. In the aftermath of the shooting, Hughes sent Brewer a text message, telling her, "No one should have hurt you like that," and claiming he had done it for her. This message was chilling evidence of Hughes's warped mentality, showing how he believed that committing murder would somehow gain Brewer's approval. The CCTV footage from the scene captured the sound of the gunshots and Hughes fleeing, providing crucial evidence that led to his arrest. The court later heard how the dispute between the two women had been escalating for months, and that Hughes had carried out the killing in an attempt to exact revenge for the row. Hughes was arrested and charged with murder and possessing a firearm with intent. During his trial, it was revealed that he had no remorse for his actions, and he had shown a complete lack of empathy for Crystal's death. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 30 years before being eligible for parole. After the trial, Crystal's mother, Deborah Penfold, gave an emotional statement, expressing the immense grief that her family felt after losing Crystal and her unborn child. The pain of the loss would stay with them forever. The murder of Crystal Hart was the tragic result of a senseless neighbor dispute that spiraled out of control. Hughes's actions that night claimed 2 lives, Crystal's and her unborn child's, and left a grieving family with an irreplaceable loss.